The lobby of the Nexon Tower on 6th Avenue had been designed to communicate one thing above all others, that the person who owned it had won. 40 feet of Italian Calicotta marble on the floors, veined in gray and gold, polished to a surface so reflective it functioned as a second ceiling. The walls were glass and steel, floor to ceiling, with the street visible on 3 sides, and the city pouring its October light through the panels in long, cold rectangles. At the center of the lobby, a reception desk of black granite ran the width of the space, and behind it, the Nexon Technologies logo in brushed gold letters, 36 inches tall, lit from within, announced the company's name to anyone who had somehow failed to notice that they were standing inside a building worth $400 million. The cameras were already set up when I arrived. Not subtle cameras, not the discreet documentation of a legal proceeding. 4 full broadcast rigs, positioned at each corner of the glass table that had been placed, for reasons I understood immediately, in the direct center of the lobby floor, visible from the street through the glass walls, visible to the building staff, visible to the journalists who had been given, I later established, a 2-hour advance notice by someone in Ethan's media relations office. Ethan Marsh stood at one side of the glass table. He was wearing a charcoal Khitan suit, $45,000, bespoke, the kind of suit that required 3 fittings, and he had the expression of a man who had planned something and was pleased with the plan. His attorney stood beside him, a woman named Carlyle, whose firm billed at $1,000 an hour and whose face had the specific blankness of someone who had participated in unpleasant things before and had learned to be efficient about it. On the glass table, a 31-page document, a pen, silver, engraved, the kind of pen that is placed at signings to make the process feel significant. Ethan looked at me when I walked through the lobby doors. He looked at my coat, a wool coat, gray, the kind I had been wearing for the 5 years of our marriage, because I preferred quality over label, and because the woman I had been pretending to be would have worn exactly this coat. And his expression did the thing it had been doing for 2 years, which was to communicate, with the minimum of effort, that he found me insufficient. Right on time, he said. At least that. What would you do if the man you had spent 5 years building a life with, a man you had loved genuinely, in the full sense of that word, who had been someone real before he became a $4 billion company and decided that the woman beside him no longer matched the valuation? What would you do if that man summoned journalists to his lobby, placed a divorce settlement on a glass table in front of cameras, and told you that you would be leaving with nothing because the post-nuptial agreement you had signed in year 3 of the marriage, at his attorney's insistence, and your mistake of trusting that marriage was not a legal transaction, entitled you to a lump sum that would cover approximately 6 months of rent in a city where rent had become a moral catastrophe? What would you do if he said, for the cameras, clearly, and with the satisfaction of someone who had thought about this moment, she never fit this world. I should have seen it earlier. Better late than never. Aim. What would you do if you picked up the pen he had provided, and you signed in the specific silence of someone who is not performing restraint, but has simply decided that the moment for words has not yet arrived? And what would you do if, as the pen lifted from the final page, you heard the sound of sirens from the avenue outside? Not one siren, not an ambulance or a police car on its way to something else. The organized, multiple register sound of a convoy moving in coordinated formation, the specific audio signature of executive protection details in motion, 6 vehicles, then 8. The sound building as they came up 6th Avenue and stopped with the precision of choreography directly in front of the Nexon Tower. The cameras turned toward the glass wall. The journalists turned toward the glass wall. Ethan turned toward the glass wall. The vehicles outside were black. 11 of them. 8 armored Range Rover Sentinels, 2 command vehicles, and a lead vehicle that was a custom-built armored limousine with a flag mount on the hood that currently flew the banner of the House of Valdenmore, a gold crescent above 3 silver stars on a field of midnight blue. The House of Valdenmore, a sovereign dynastic house with unbroken lineage since the 13th century, whose current holdings across banking, energy, maritime infrastructure, private equity, and sovereign wealth management were valued at the most recent comprehensive audit at approximately $1.4 trillion. And through the lobby doors, surrounded by 8 members of the Valdenmore Royal Protection Advance Detail, came my brother. But let me take you back. Let me take you to where this started, because the place where this started is the only place from which the lobby makes sense. My name is Sophia Elara of House Valdenmore. I am the second child and only daughter of His Serene Highness Grand Duke Frederick of Valdenmore and the late Grand Duchess Margot, who died when I was 19 years old from a condition that progressed faster than anyone had been prepared for. My brother Alexei is 36 and is the crown prince and heir to a dynasty whose reach I will not fully enumerate, because the enumeration would take longer than this story. I was not raised to be invisible. I was raised to be exactly visible in the specific way that members of dynastic houses are trained, to be present at events, to understand protocol, to conduct diplomacy with the natural ease that comes from having practiced it since childhood, to be the face of something that was larger than any individual and that required its individual to represent it with consistency and grace. I did all of that. I was good at all of it. I had a genuine gift for the diplomatic work, for the reading of rooms, for the understanding of what people wanted and needed from interactions with the house, for the navigation of international relationships with the patience and precision they required. I was also, by 27, exhausted by being seen only as that. The exhaustion was specific. It was not the exhaustion of work. I found the work meaningful. It was the exhaustion of being unknown, of knowing that every person I interacted with was interacting simultaneously with the House of Valdenmore, the dynasty, the symbol, the projection of a 700-year institution, of never being sure whether anyone saw through that to the person standing inside it. At 28, I did what my brother described as the most audacious thing any member of our family had attempted in 2 generations. I left. I arranged an identity with the help of 3 people from the house's security and legal staff who understood both the reason and the risk. Sophie Marsh, an appropriate near homonym, chosen deliberately, the kind of name that is easy to maintain under pressure because it is close enough to the truth to feel natural. Research librarian at the Whitfield Public Library in Brooklyn, New York. The position was real. The library existed, the role existed, and I was genuinely a trained archivist with a postgraduate degree in information science that I had completed before my mother's death and that I found meaningful work. I moved to Brooklyn, an apartment in Carroll Gardens on the 2nd floor of a brownstone with exposed brick and a garden-facing window, and the particular quality of light that brownstones collect in the afternoon and hold in a way that felt nothing like a palace and everything like a choice. I walked to work. I cataloged collections, helped researchers locate materials, managed the library's rare document preservation program with the care it deserved, and felt, for the first time in years, like my competence was visible without my title. I told my brother I needed 18 months. He said, "Define need." I said, "I need to know if connection is possible without context." He looked at me in the way that older brothers look at younger sisters when they believe they understand something the sister does not, and have decided, correctly, that saying so will accomplish nothing. 18 months, he said, and you will have protection. I said, "I know." He said, "Sophia, if something happens," I said, "then you will know what to do. You always do." He looked at me for a moment. "Come back to us." I said, "I will come back to you better." I met Ethan Marsh at a fundraising event for a Brooklyn literacy nonprofit, 8 months into my time in New York. He was there because the nonprofit's board included two of his technology company's early investors, and he attended the events of people who had helped him out of obligation. He wore with the discomfort of someone who understood it theoretically, but found it awkward in practice. He was 34, the founder and CEO of Nexen Technologies, a company that made enterprise data management software that had grown in 4 years from 12 employees in a midtown sublease to 1,400 people, and a valuation that was climbing toward $4 billion. He was standing near the silent auction tables when I arrived, looking at a piece of donated art with the expression of someone who was trying to form an opinion and was aware that the opinion would be visible and wanted it to be the correct one. He asked me what I thought of it. I said I thought the artist was technically accomplished, but that the work was more interested in being seen as emotional than in being emotional. He looked at me with an expression of surprise that was the most genuine thing he showed anyone for the first 6 months of our acquaintance. "That is the most accurate sentence I have heard at one of these things," he said. We talked for an hour. He was smart, specifically the kind of smart that comes from genuine curiosity about systems and how they fail and how failure can be made useful. He asked about the library, about what it meant to preserve things, about whether physical archives were the right model for information that was increasingly digital. He asked good questions, and he listened to the answers, which was the quality I found rarest and most attractive in people who had become successful enough to stop needing to listen. He asked for my number. I gave it. The relationship that followed was the relationship I had come to New York to find. He called when he said he would. He came to the library once, just to see it, and he sat for 40 minutes in the reading room, looking at the way the afternoon light came through the old windows, and said it was beautiful in the way that things built before planned obsolescence are beautiful. He cooked dinner on Sundays with the imperfect enthusiasm of someone who was trying something new. He asked about my family with the care of someone who was not probing for leverage, but genuinely wanted to understand who he was dealing with. I told him my family was in Europe, that they were complicated, that I was not close to them in the way that made explaining them simple. He accepted this with the equanimity of someone who had complicated family of his own. He proposed at 14 months, not staged, not photographed. Over coffee on a Sunday morning in his apartment, he said he had been thinking about what the right life looked like, and that every version he could imagine that felt right included me. And would I consider making it official? The ring was a pale sapphire in a simple setting that he said he had chosen because it matched the color of something, and then he could not remember what. And I found this endearing, precisely because it was not a performance. I said yes. We married quietly, a city hall ceremony with 4 witnesses, a dinner afterward at a restaurant in the West Village. My brother attended under a cover identity. He shook Ethan's hand with the grip of someone evaluating the handshake's structural integrity and said, "Take care of her." Ethan said, "That is my intention." My brother looked at him for approximately 3 seconds. Then he said, "Good." The first year of marriage was the year I had hoped for. The second year was the year Nexen Technologies went public at a valuation of $3.6 billion. And the third year was the year Ethan Marsh became someone slightly different from the person I had married. The change was not immediate. It was the slow kind, the kind that happens when a person's external circumstances change faster than their internal architecture can accommodate, and the gap fills with whatever is most readily available, which in Ethan's case was the specific self-satisfaction of a man who has been told frequently, and by people whose agreement he valued, that he is exceptional. He stopped listening, not completely, not all at once, but incrementally, in the way that things stop when they are replaced by something else. In his case, by the sound of his own assessment of situations, which he had begun to prefer over the input of other people, including me. His mother, Patricia Marsh, was a woman of 62 who had spent 40 years managing the social consequences of not having enough money, and the past 3 managing the social consequences of suddenly having quite a lot of it through her son's success. She wore things she had previously considered out of reach: a Chanel jacket at a family dinner, a Loro Piana coat at Thanksgiving, a Hermes scarf whose purchase she mentioned 3 times in the evening I first saw it. She had the energy of someone who had decided, late in life, that they had finally arrived and was determined to ensure everyone around them understood where they had arrived to. She met me at the first family Thanksgiving, 2 months before the wedding, and looked at my wool coat and my simple dress and my complete lack of visible jewelry with an expression that did its work without saying a word. "Ethan tells me you work at a library," she said. "A research library, yes," I said. "Archival conservation primarily." "How lovely," she said. "Something to do, something to do." Over the following 3 years, Patricia found many gentle and plausible ways to communicate that I was insufficient for the occasion. She suggested, at a family dinner where Ethan's board members were present, that I might enjoy taking a class. Something creative, something that would give me a sense of my own accomplishment, something that was not, she said with a smile, just sorting old papers. She mentioned, at Ethan's 40th birthday party, that she had always hoped he would marry someone with more. And here she paused, deliberately, before choosing Sparkle. Ethan's colleague and board member Raina Chow was 38 and had the specific beauty and the specific ambition of a person who had decided at a young age that both were tools and had been using them efficiently ever since. She wore things that announced their own expense. She had the habit of referring to me at shared events as our quiet one, with a warmth so precisely calibrated that no individual instance of it could be objected to, but the cumulative effect was unmistakable. Ethan, when I raised this, said Raina was a valuable board member and that I should try to see her from his perspective. He said it in the tone of someone who had chosen a side and was explaining it to the person on the other side. This was the pattern of our 3rd and 4th year. He chose, each time a choice was required, the version that cost him least, which was never the version that cost me least. He asked me to manage myself differently at events. He asked me to consider whether my wardrobe was projecting the right image for a company at this stage. He asked once whether I had thought about what I was actually contributing, because he was finding it difficult to articulate to his board colleagues and their partners what exactly I brought to the picture. I said, "You should not need to articulate to your board colleagues what your wife brings to a picture." He said, "That is not how this world works." I said, "Whose world?" He said, "Ours." I said, "It was not always yours or ours. It was just the world." He looked at me with the expression he had developed in the past year, which was the expression of a man who has decided that the person in front of him does not understand and that the decision is final. "I have worked very hard to build this," he said. "I need you to be part of it, or I need to understand what we are doing." I said, "I know what we are doing." I called my brother that evening. I said, "Alexei, I need to talk to you about timing." He said, "How long?" I said, "I think he is going to move first. I need to be ready when he does." My brother said, "What do you need?" I told him. He was quiet for approximately 4 seconds. Then he said, "Sophia, are you certain?" I said, "I have been certain for 6 months. I was waiting to see if I was wrong." He said, "And?" I said, "I was not wrong." He said, "I will have everything in position. You tell me when." I said, "I will." Ethan called 3 weeks later. He said he needed me to come to the Nexen Tower at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. He said his attorneys would be there. He said it was important. I said, "All right." I called Alexei. I said, "Thursday, 10 o'clock. The Nexen Tower lobby." He said, "I will be there." I said, "Not inside. Let him finish. Let him do the whole thing, and then come in." He said, "Sophia." I said, "Let him finish." There was a pause. Then, "Understood." I wore the wool coat. I did this deliberately. I arrived at the Nexen Tower at 9:58. I walked through the lobby doors. I saw the cameras. I saw the table. I saw Ethan in the Keaton suit with the expression of a man who has planned something and is pleased with himself. I walked to the table. I sat down. I looked at the document. I looked at the pen. Ethan said his piece. He said I had never fit this world. He said it for the cameras. He said it with the satisfaction of a man who had convinced himself that a public humiliation was actually a form of clarity. I picked up the pen. I read the document. Every page. I did not rush. Several of the journalists shifted their weight. Ethan looked at his watch once. His attorney maintained her professional blankness. I signed the last page. I put the pen down. I said nothing. Ethan began to say something. I do not know what he was going to say, because the sound of the sirens cut through the glass walls, and every person in the lobby turned toward the avenue. The 11 vehicles stopped outside. The doors opened. 8 members of the Royal Protection Advance Detail entered the lobby first, moving with coordinated efficiency, positioning themselves at the lobby's entry points and along the wall. They wore dark suits, not uniforms. The advance detail never wore uniforms in civilian environments, which made them more effective and more alarming. And then my brother walked through the lobby doors. Alexei of Valdenmoor was 36 years old and 6 feet 2 inches tall, and had, in the estimation of everyone who had ever met him in his official capacity, the most naturally commanding presence they had encountered. He was wearing a dark navy overcoat, cashmere, bespoke, the Valdenmoor house tailor's work, over a formal suit with the Order of the House on the lapel. He walked through the lobby with the unhurried certainty of someone for whom the concept of a room not welcoming him was genuinely foreign. He walked past the glass table. He walked past Ethan, who was standing at the table with his mouth slightly open. He walked past the cameras and the journalists and the building staff and the 4 broadcast rigs, and he walked to where I was sitting, and he stopped in front of me. He reached into the inside pocket of the overcoat. He produced a second garment, a woman's coat, folded in the Valdenmoor midnight blue cashmere with the house crest embroidered at the collar. He unfolded it. He held it open. I stood up. I put my arms through. The coat settled on my shoulder. Its weight was extraordinary, as cashmere of that quality always is, heavy in the way of something that has been made to last a very long time. Alexei looked at me. His expression was the expression of a brother who has been waiting for a long time to do something and is very glad to be doing it. "Your Highness," he said, "are you ready to leave?" I said, "Yes." He offered me his arm. I took it. He turned to the lobby. His voice, when he addressed rooms officially, did not require amplification. It had a quality that came from decades of practice in spaces where authority needed to be audible without being performed. "My name is Alexei of Valdenmoor, Crown Prince and heir to the House of Valdenmoor. The woman beside me is Her Serene Highness, Princess Sophia Ilara of House Valdenmoor, my sister and a member of the sovereign dynastic house, whose combined assets are valued at approximately $1.4 trillion. He paused. "She has just signed documents divorcing Mr. Ethan Marsh. That is her right and her choice." He looked at Ethan. "Mr. Marsh, you have, over the past 5 years, been the husband of a member of the House of Valdenmoor, though you did not know it. During that time, the Valdenmoor Sovereign Investment Trust maintained an indirect position in Nexen Technologies through a series of holding vehicles that it has used for foreign technology investments. That position, as of this morning, has been fully liquidated." The lobby was perfectly silent. "The position represented," Alexei continued, 12.4% of Nexen's outstanding shares, held across 4 vehicles. The liquidation was completed at market open this morning and has been reported to the SEC as required. The market will process the volume when trading resume." He looked at his watch. "In approximately 8 minutes. Behind the journalists, 2 of them were already on their phones, not filming, calling." Additionally, Alexei said, "the Valdenmoor Infrastructure Development Fund, which holds a senior debt position in Nexen's primary data center financing arrangement, has served notice of its intent to exercise its early repayment clause, which is triggered by a material change in the company's ownership structure. $14.2 million is due within 30 days. Ethan's face had been doing something complicated since the moment Alexei walked through the door. The computation happening behind his eyes was visible. The rapid restructuring of everything he thought he had known, the recalibration of the past 5 years, the dawning understanding of what he had been sitting next to at Sunday dinners and dismissing as insufficient. He said, "Sophia, you could have told me." I looked at him for the first time since Alexei had arrived, just once, just long enough to let him see my face clearly. "You told me," I said, "that I never fit your world. You were right. This is not my world. My world is considerably larger." I turned. I walked toward the lobby doors. Alexei walked beside me. The protection detail formed around us with the smooth efficiency of a mechanism that had been engineered for exactly this. We walked through the lobby doors. We walked across the sidewalk. The lead vehicle's door was open. The protection officer standing beside it inclined his head. I stopped for one moment on the sidewalk. The October air was cold and clear, the kind of New York October that smells of exhaust and stone, and the particular atmospheric quality of a city that has absorbed several hundred years of human urgency and metabolized it into something that is not peace, but is at least familiar. I did not look back at the lobby. I did not need to. I got into the vehicle. The door closed. The convoy moved. Behind us, as we drove south on 6th Avenue, the market was reopening from its mid-morning technical pause. The Nexen Technology stock, as the 12.4% liquidation volume processed, declined 19% in 4 minutes. The decline triggered margin calls on 3 of the company's largest individual investors. 2 of those investors made decisions in the space of 7 minutes that compounded the decline. By the time we reached the Lincoln Tunnel, Nexen stock was down 27% from its previous close. By the time we were in New Jersey, Ethan's attorneys had called 3 times. My brother's legal team did not return the calls. Ethan Marsh's company recovered some of its value over the following weeks, as markets tend to do after single-session declines. But the debt facility notice, the $14.2 million payable within 30 days, required the company to sell assets it had not planned to sell at prices that reflected the urgency of the timeline. The board, responding to investor pressure and the reputational damage of the lobby cameras, the footage was everywhere within 4 hours, requested Ethan step back from the CEO role, pending a review of his judgment and conduct. He stepped back within the week. He sent me 6 messages through his attorney in the month that followed. I did not respond to any of them. I am back in Valdenmoor. I have been here for 3 months. The house welcomed me back in the specific way that places welcome people who belong to them. Not with ceremony, but with the quiet acknowledgement that the return was always going to happen and the timing was simply a matter of when. Alexei, on the flight home, sat beside me and did not say much for the first hour. Then he said, "5 years." I said, "Yes." He said, "Was it worth it?" I thought about the library in Carroll Gardens, the afternoon light through the old windows, the reading room with its particular smell of paper and time. I thought about Sunday mornings with coffee and a man who had once asked good questions and listened to the answers. I thought about the person I had been for 5 years and everything she had learned, and whether any of it was translatable back into the life I had returned to. "Yes," I said, "it was worth it." He nodded. He looked out the window. Then he said, "He called you insufficient." "Yes," I said. "In a lobby," he said. "On camera." "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I want it noted that I was extremely restrained." I said, "You were. Thank you." He said, "I have been practicing restraint for 36 years. It is a skill I do not enjoy." I laughed. He did not laugh, but something in his face changed in the direction of amusement. I have thought about what I learned in those 5 years many times since returning. I have thought about what it means to choose to be invisible, and what it teaches you about the people you are invisible to, and whether what it teaches is worth the cost. I think it is. I think the cost of knowing is always worth paying, even when what you know is not what you hoped. Ethan Marsh did not fail me because he was a bad person. He failed me because he was a person who did not examine his assumptions about worth and value and what it means to have enough. He assumed that what he could see was all there was to see. He assumed that the woman in the wool coat was the whole picture. He built a world on that assumption, and he invited cameras into his lobby to confirm it. And he discovered that assumptions of that kind are the most expensive kind you can make. True power does not correct its detractors. It does not argue with people who have already decided. It signs the paper, in the lobby, in front of the cameras, with the silence of someone who knows exactly what comes next. And then it walks out in a coat that the whole world will photograph, on the arm of a crown prince, into a convoy that takes it somewhere the man in the Khitan suit will never go. So tell me, did you see the moment Ethan Marsh understood? The moment the 11 vehicles stopped outside his lobby and his 4 broadcast cameras captured something he had not planned for? Did he get exactly what he earned for calling the wrong woman insufficient? If this story of 5 years of patience, 1 lobby, and a crown prince with cashmere and extraordinary timing made you believe that real power is always exactly where you least expect it, smash that like button. Share this with everyone who has ever been dismissed by someone who was looking at the surface and missing everything underneath. And subscribe so you never miss a story of crowns, consequences, and the moment the pen lifts from the paper.